Michael Myers will definitely be back, so let's figure out how. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champane, and if you like monsters, slashers, pretty much any movie shot during, set during, or inspired by the 1980s, this is the channel for you. So I kind of teased this in my last video, but I've definitely seen all the tweets, comments, Instagram DMs, pretty much everything out there asking what's going on with the Halloween franchise, and it does seem like there is some movement behind the scenes. The annoying thing is everyone's just kind of saying different stuff. So for today's video, I thought it'd be cool if I got together 5 different ways the Halloween franchise can come back, and they're all pretty likely, so if any of them happen, I wouldn't be surprised. So we'll just jump right into it with the first way that Halloween could come back, and that's with the TV series. Now, this has actually been talked about in the past. I think it was like back in 2018. Yeah, so there was an article on Bloody Disgusting called "Producer Malik Akkad Still Wants to Make a Halloween TV Series," and the quote in the title is "Something We're Looking at Very Closely." Now, the context there is that before Halloween 2018 was announced with this whole partnership between Blumhouse, Universal, Malik Akkad's company, I think Miramax is thrown in there as well, there was a Halloween TV series in development because there was a TV series for everything in development around that time, including Friday the 13th, which was supposed to be a CW show, which is crazy, and I'm glad that that didn't work out. So way back in 2018 when Malik Akkad was talking about this, he was really cryptic about what the actual show would be, but he did confirm that Michael Myers would be in it, and the specific quote he gave says, "The one we were developing and I still feel very strongly about, he's involved in it. That's really all I can say about it now. It wouldn't look anything like your traditional Halloween movie, but he's in there, as are a lot of other characters, but used in different and interesting ways. I wish I could talk more about it, but it's something we're looking at very closely." And from a lot of the rumors I've heard, this is still the direction that he's kind of trying to go in, because it seemed like before the movie was even announced, there was an idea for a TV show. And again, from everything I've heard, it seems like that's the direction they're going in. Now, I actually did a video about this when it was announced, and I feel the same way now as I think I did back then, which is that I don't really think this is a great way for Halloween to come back. So back when this article came out in 2018, it really felt like every horror property ever was moving over to TV, whether you're talking Jason on the CW, Chucky going over to Peacock and Sci-Fi, they brought back Leprechaun on Sci-Fi as well, Ash vs. Evil Dead was on Stars. It really seemed like the way things were going, and I think the reasoning for that was for some reason it was easier to make those characters transition to TV than it was to put them in the theater, because the rights are split up for every horror franchise under the sun. Now, a lot of these shows like The Exorcist and Chucky and Ash vs. Evil Dead ended up coming out, but the one consistent thing with all of them is that when these shows air, everyone's just kind of biting their nails wondering if there's going to be a second season, because unlike movies, which for some reason can be pumped out really quickly, have low budgets of around $5 million, get thrown in theaters with little to no marketing, and then turn a profit of like over $100 million, it never really works out that way with TV, and it's super frustrating. And even with the best of these shows, or I should say my favorite of these shows, like Ash vs. Evil Dead, which I absolutely love, I have the whole show on Blu-ray, I revisit it regularly, it got a lot of stuff right, but it never really managed to feel like the Evil Dead movies, which are what I really liked about that franchise in the first place, the movies that started it all. Chucky, I would definitely say, has gotten the closest to recapturing the spirit of the film franchise, but it really focuses more on the later movies like Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, and it does pull a little bit from Child's Play 1, 2, and 3, but really in tone more than like overall visual style. When you watch this show, it feels like you're watching a show in the universe of Bride, Seed, Curse, and Cult of Chucky. You know what I'm saying? And when you're taking something like Halloween, which literally hit its box office peak with the last 3 movies, and still, I believe at least, has extreme box office potential, it seems like a little bit of a waste of time and energy to focus on a TV show that would definitely go to a streaming service, when pretty much every streaming service is having to do this thing where they delete content so they can take a loss on it. There's shows being canceled, there's shows being released on Blu-ray, like the whole streaming corner of the internet seems like it's totally imploding at this point. So having a TV show set in the Halloween universe where they're going to have to get a lot of fans to come in to keep it going, keep the viewership up, and get a second season greenlit, and they're also fighting a two-front war where they have to get the budget from streamers to even make it happen in the first place, that doesn't seem like the smartest move to me. And if this does happen, it seems like the philosophy there is that, well, we already developed the show before before these last movies came out. Why not just reheat that in the microwave and try and get someone to pick it up? And it just doesn't really feel as right as the Halloween 2018 news did. When we got that image of Laurie sitting like head to head with Michael in the leaves, it really felt like something cool. And I'm just being honest, taking Halloween, which traditionally has been a film franchise that became an event film franchise, like when these things were building up around Halloween, people were excited, they were buying merch, they were there night one to see what Michael Myers was up to, and then transitioning that into a TV series that's going to have to fight the whole way to even exist, it just seems like a downgrade that this series genuinely doesn't need. I talked about this in my Friday the 13th update video, which if you haven't seen it, I kind of went through everything that's going on in that universe, and it seems like there's a lot going on. But if they could make a TV show that kind of tied into an eventual movie that would be theatrically released, and then you go to the movies, you don't need any of the prior knowledge, and you say, hey, I want some more backstory on what's going on with Halloween and this new take on Halloween, then you could just go back and watch the TV show. That would be one thing. But just putting all of the eggs in the TV series basket, it doesn't seem like the smartest move to me. And I'm kind of rambling on here, so I'm going to wrap up this section. But yeah, I might be in the extreme minority with this one, but I will watch a TV show. I'll be excited for it. I just don't really want the TV show to be the only thing that they work on with the Halloween franchise. This video is sponsored by NordVPN. Look, it's 2023. If you're not using a VPN, what are you doing? I'm so glad this is a movie channel because I can tell you my favorite feature of NordVPN, which is changing the country I'm in and then using other countries' libraries. They get so much better stuff in England and I don't know why. Oh, and you can also use that feature in reverse. Like if you're in a different time zone than you usually are, or you're overseas, you can watch the content you're used to just by using a VPN and connecting to a US server in your time zone. Nord has threat protection, which makes you safer online with a single click and stops malware from infecting your computer. And the best part is it's the fastest VPN on the planet. They also have a password locker and scan for data breaches. This VPN does it all. So if you use my link in the description or go to nordvpn.com/champagne and subscribe to a 2-year plan, you'll get 4 months free. And the best part is it's risk-free because there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. Huge shout out to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. And that brings us to the next way Halloween could come back, which is with a legacy sequel to the Curse of Thorn trilogy. So Halloween 4, 5, and 6. Now me personally, if they ended up going this route, I would make it a legacy sequel to Halloween 4, which there is precedent of that already. Obviously, they cut out every sequel after Halloween 1978 for the last trilogy, so it really wouldn't be a big deal if they cut out Halloween 5 and 6 to make a new movie that's a sequel to Halloween 4. So it really wouldn't be a big deal if they cut out Halloween 5 and 6 to make a sequel to 4. And I think people would be really interested in this because Halloween 4 was the entry point for a ton of people, specifically people my age, into the Halloween franchise. It wasn't the first Halloween movie I saw. I'm 99% certain I saw 1978 first, but it was definitely the second one, and that's because they played it all the time on AMC Fear Fest. My mom let me watch AMC Fear Fest, I don't know why, so I was around the same age as Jamie when I saw this movie, and I absolutely loved it from top to bottom, and it's still a regular watch for me. I watch it all throughout the year. I got the 4K version of it on Apple, and it still looks really good. So I would personally love to see this, and the reason I think they should make it a sequel to Halloween 4 is that you could have characters like Rachel come back, because she is one of the best older sister final girl types in the franchise. I would say honestly one of the best non-villain main characters of the franchise, like in the top 3 for sure. And I thought it was so dumb that they not only killed her off but did it in such a stupid way in Halloween 5, and add insult to injury, she gets killed by like teardrop mask Michael Myers. I don't know, nothing about that worked for me, and killing her off was just such a stupid move. So I would love if they made a new legacy sequel for her to still be alive and get the original actress to come back and play her, of course. And in terms of Halloween vibes, I think there's a definite case to be made for Halloween 4 and 6 that both of those movies match, if not exceed, the Halloween vibes in Halloween 2018 Kills and Ends. I think those 3 movies did a really good job, and they actually got more fall Halloween-y as they went on. But Halloween 4, of course, has the best intro in the entire franchise. It gives you that gloomy fall feel, but it's got a like sinister undertone. I've talked about it a million times on the channel, so I'm not even gonna let myself get into it. And Halloween 6 has that great fall atmosphere as well. It's got that 90s look and feel just from the costumes, the fashion, the way everything is shot. It just looks like it takes place around Halloween in the Midwest. So having that be a central focus of a new legacy sequel to Halloween 4, I think would be so important and pay such huge dividends that they need to do it. Also, we've all seen the incredible flashback in Halloween Kills, so we know they have not only someone who can look the part of Dr. Loomis ready to go, to the point that it's almost creepy, but they also have a pretty decent voice match, so they could bring back that character as well if they wanted to set it in the 80s. But then of course they'd have to pick different actors to play Jamie and Rachel, but they could still cast Danielle Harris and Ellie Cornell as characters in the show, just not the characters they played. That would be awesome, and I'm also just visualizing if they were able to do flashbacks in that to Halloween 4 and they just rebuild scenes from scratch one-to-one, but use the actual right Michael Myers mask. That would be so cool. It's just not something that I think is on the table right now, but definitely could be in the future. You know, we just came off of a trilogy where they retconned the entire franchise. There were tons of news stories about that every time a new sequel came out, like when Halloween 2018 came out, tons of news stories that are like, what's the Halloween timeline now? They cut out every movie. And then the same thing would happen with Kills and Ends. The mainstream people who come to see these movies, they get the box office returns over 100 million. They don't need to be confused any more than they are. So yeah, I don't think this is what they're going to do now, but I could definitely see them doing it in maybe 5 or 10 years. Next, for the third way Halloween could come back, this is like my ultimate dream. I don't know if they'll ever do something like this because I think it would be a little too expensive, but man, after seeing that flashback in Halloween Kills, how perfectly they nailed not only Loomis, but Michael's look and also the Myers house, they just rebuilt the sets from the original movie in a soundstage, and it looked like they were filming at the Myers house in South Pasadena. Like, I give them massive props for being able to do that, but like I said, that was probably pretty expensive, and the like big poison for horror movies is big budgets. That just won't happen these days, so I don't know if they'd ever do this. But man, it would be so awesome if they made a whole new Halloween 3 that was set after Halloween 2 but featured Michael Myers being resurrected, and it was just set in that time period because we know they can do it and make it look right. But man, it would just be so awesome if they either A, did a full-on reboot and made a new Halloween 1 but had that flashback style, like set it in the 80s or 70s and made it look like that flashback did in Halloween Kills, or they just restart this new timeline they already made. You know, start with the end of Halloween 1978 so both Michael and Loomis are not ashes on the floor, and then let them have a new story that just fits right in with Halloween 1978. Or you could keep Halloween 2 and set it in between there. There are tons and tons of possibilities, but I just love the way that flashback looks so much. I watch it on YouTube all the time. I think the way Michael is still brutal in it, like he is in the future, is a cool little retcon that totally works. I know some people don't like it, but I personally do. The way they nailed the mood lighting, the sound effects, the colors, just everything about it was awesome. So if they were to make one movie choice, I think what I would like is for them to make a new movie that's filmed like the flashback in Halloween Kills. Now, that'd be tricky for a lot of reasons beyond it being expensive. Of course, you'd have to get Blumhouse involved. I personally wouldn't even bother seeing it or getting excited for it if Christopher Nelson wasn't the guy making the mask and the Michael Myers look, because he's the guy who did it in the flashback in Halloween Kills. So if they went with anyone else, I'd say it's not even worth doing. Also, I just don't know how big the market is for something like that. It seems like something aimed directly at hardcore fans like us, but I don't know if the mass market would go out to see a movie that looks like it was filmed between 1978 and 1981. There's a lot of variables to play around with there, and it really does seem like too good to be true if it was ever announced. But man, how cool would that be to get a movie that's set between Halloween 1 and 2 in that universe where it just looks like that flashback did? I think that would be pretty damn cool. The fourth way it could come back, that I think it will eventually come back, is with a trilogy of Allison focused movies where Laurie is long gone. She's an old lady and Halloween Ends. You focus on a more adult Allison. She's in a new town. She thinks she's escaped Michael Myers, and then suddenly he's back. We don't have to have it explained, of course, because, you know, he was put into the meat grinder, and the more you explain stuff like that, it just never really makes sense. But the point is, he would come back and terrorize her and maybe a new group of kids. Now, this is what I was convinced was going to happen when Halloween 2018 Kills and Ends were all coming out. I mean, if you go back to like any of my videos, I was like sure that they were going to focus on Allison more in each sequel, and obviously that kind of came true in Halloween Ends, having her and Corey be love interests for each other, but she wasn't exactly the main character or final girl that I thought they were going to have her be. And even after the ending of Halloween Ends, I was still kind of holding out hope that they would do some sort of Allison trilogy. But now with Blumhouse moving on, Danny McBride giving interviews where he's like, hey, we put our thumbprint on the franchise, we want to see what other people can do. I don't think this is going to happen anytime soon, but you know, I could see it happening a few years down the line just because people are going to get nostalgic for that character. I know people online get really pissed off about this for some reason because it's just a movie at the end of the day, so who cares? But I've been beating the drum since Halloween Ends came out that that's a movie people are going to come back and appreciate, and my reasoning for that is in my video I just did on A Nightmare on Elm Elm Street. I said that I don't want to see people doing that for the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, and I got tons and tons of comments from people who say it's actually really good, guys. Give it a chance and you might like it. So if a movie as bad as that can get people to go back and start saying it's good, a movie that I personally think is great but other people think is bad, Halloween Ends, should have no trouble doing the same. But as of right now, I think the whole Allison character and this new timeline that goes Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills and Ends, I think that's on ice and they're going to focus on other things. But still, the idea is cool and pretty sound if you ask me. I think regardless, there needs to be a break for those characters to let people just calm down and move on a little bit. Build up a little nostalgia for the time when these movies were coming out versus the movies themselves. When you let that happen, whenever there's a legacy sequel in a franchise like that, people generally come around and get excited to see it again. I know people aren't going to want to be burned like they were with Halloween Ends, but as they say, time heals all wounds, you know? And that brings us to the fifth way they could bring Halloween back, which is with a sequel to Halloween 3. Now, I have been hearing rumors about Halloween 3 being revisited for so long now. Before Halloween Kills came out, I heard people talking about it. I'm pretty sure I heard it on the Thing with Two Heads podcast that it was hinted. I've heard it at conventions and other places. There is obviously something going on with the Halloween 3 universe, and the reasoning for that has to be that when they do these revival screenings of it at places like the Alamo Drafthouse or at local theaters, people show up for that movie. It took a little while for people to really care about it because having a Halloween movie that doesn't have Michael Myers in it is a tough pill to swallow, but people who went out and watched it, whether through word of mouth or just general curiosity in the movie, generally seem to really enjoy it, and it's so far removed from Halloween that I feel like it's such a good idea to revisit. The whole philosophy there, you've heard it a million times probably, is that they were going to make Halloween a banner for new movies every year. So it would be called Halloween, but it would be a brand new movie in a brand new universe, and they even showed that Halloween 3 is in a separate universe by having Dr. Chalice watch Halloween 1 on the TV, because that's when the big giveaway is going to happen that'll melt everyone's faces and make bugs and snakes and other come out of it. Obviously 40 some odd years later that didn't work out, but I think it could have a better chance of working in 2023 than it did in the 80s because we have the internet now. Like, there's a much easier way to spread the information beforehand that this isn't going to have Michael Myers and that Halloween is turning into more of a banner. And going back to the first way it could come back, like as a TV show, I feel like if it was an anthology show that didn't have Michael in it and just focused on a new Halloween story every year, that gives that show the best chance of survival of any idea. I know Michael Myers would bring people back for at least a couple episodes, but it would definitely have the Ash effect where it's diminishing returns as time goes on, and I could see it fizzling out by season 2 or 3. Whereas if they make a high quality anthology show a la Channel Zero with the Halloween banner, you get the people to come in by seeing Halloween and you get them to stay by giving them a quality show. It's kind of like a foolproof plan if you ask me. But yeah, there's definitely a lot to mine within the actual Halloween 3 universe with those stones and their power and the whole Samhain thing. There's so much lore there that they didn't even bother covering in Halloween 3 that I feel like there's a lot to revisit there, and it's a movie they could definitely remake and modernize, and it would still probably do better than it did back in the day. But yeah, I know this video is called 5 ways it could come back, but the 6th, the bonus way it could come back, is as a video game, and I feel like there's so many different ways you can do it. I know that the way it'll probably come back is through an asymmetrical multiplayer horror game, and I'm not throwing shade to any games like Evil Dead, Texas Chainsaw, or Dead by Daylight. I'm just personally getting a little sick of learning the new version of this game, right? The new version of Dead by Daylight that these games end up being, and it just has slight twists on the rules. I think the best one so far is Evil Dead, followed by Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think that game's gonna have legs, but yeah, I would love Halloween to be more story focused and have 2 campaigns and let you play as Michael Myers and let you play as a survivor. Michael Myers would obviously be more killer focused, more violent, more brutal, and then if you're playing as a survivor, it could be a whole new stealth game, and you could even do it like Dead by Daylight where Michael has first or third person as an option, and if you're a survivor, you're playing in straight up third person so you can kind of see around the map. But regardless, I feel like Halloween totally lends itself to a video game, and if they got anyone to do it, the people who made Alien Isolation would be a slam dunk easy pick. They would absolutely nail a Halloween game. I've talked about this before, but I also think Halloween would make a really good movie style game like Detroit Become Human, where you make multiple decisions throughout the game and that can completely change the ending that you get and who lives and who dies. Halloween with a villain like Michael Myers totally works for that. I know the big gripe people would have there is that no one's playing as Michael Myers, so that kind of brings you back to the asymmetrical horror game. I don't know, it seems like we're getting a game for every horror IP, so I feel like this is a when, not if scenario regardless, but my fingers are definitely crossed that what we do end up getting isn't another asymmetrical horror game. game, because Dead by Daylight is always going to be the biggest. It's going to be the one that people always come back to. And even with Texas Chainsaw releasing on Game Pass, I feel like unless they have regular content drops and some sort of seasons or a battle pass or something like that, it's going to be really hard to retain players over time. But hey, maybe that's not their goal, right? Like maybe they went into this game with a defined budget that they just have to make back at Gun Media, and once they do that, they'll keep the servers live, but then keep content coming to it as long as people play it. Saber Interactive, the developers of Evil Dead and World War Z, definitely do that with World War Z. They bring new content to that game all the time, I think like 6 years after it came out. So it can be done, and I feel like Gun Media is in a very similar situation, and they've got that launch success that I feel like a lot of these other games don't get. But that being said, I would love Halloween to not be one of those games, because I want it to be something that I can play whenever, and not something that's going to have servers turn off, or I don't play it for a year and then I come back to it and get absolutely steamrolled like what happened with Evil Dead. It just would work so much better as a single player game. But yeah, that's 5+1 ways I could think of for Halloween to come back. Some obviously more likely than others, but I'm sure I didn't cover them all. So if you've got any ideas, let me know down in the comments below, and remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champane, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.